right, good morning and welcome to the Life Rose Podcast. Another episode here for you. I'm John, this is T, and here, what we like to do is we like to take a little peek outside of the box that we seem to be contained in, get a little uncomfortable, and challenge some social norms, right? And today, we are going to challenge one of the most prevalent social norms today, and that's the media and the narratives and these stories that we create and all these labels and things that we just blindly feed into. And, you know, one of my first questions is why? Like, what are we doing? What are we thinking? When was the last time we actually sat back and asked what it is that we believe, why we believe it, and why we get so emotionally worked up about it to the point where we are willing to fight and die on these hills of things just because somebody else said something that we either agree or disagree with?
Got it. I think that hill right there, I'll call it the hill of stupidity. And the reason why I call it the hill of stupidity is everything that we see on TV, although TV is dead, on our phones, on our computers, laptops, tablets, whatever electronic device you use, is someone pushing something. And pushing their narrative, pushing their beliefs, pushing whatever it may be, mainly because they want you to come back. So it's thrilling news. It's exciting news. It's something that's, oh boy, I got to hear more. It's kind of like a drug that we get addicted to. And the stupidity of it is we take it as fact. We listen, we start to believe, and yet no matter what they say, they don't back it up with anything. Both sides. I'm not, we can talk the political side. You can talk anything. Every side wants to defend themselves and say our side's better, but none really argue with fact. They just argue with a louder voice, or like you said, they'll put you in a box because you've refuted their statement. Like, oh no, I don't like this. Oh, you're a homophobe. Like, what? I just said I don't believe in gay marriage. Oh, you're a homophobe. Or like, no. Just said I don't believe in gay marriage. It was how I raised. Homophobe. They'll say it louder and louder and louder until you're a point where you're like, no, I don't want to be a homophobe. Like, I'll just stop talking about it. Like, you can't have an open discussion because you're put in a box.
Well, I feel like you just said it. Like, you can't have an open discussion anymore. You can't just say things, right? And even without, you can't say things without stirring the pot a little bit and feeling like somebody's going to blast you all over social media or judge you or say something about you and ruin your reputation all over some silly thing that you said. And you said it, right? Like, if I say something against gay people, I'm a homophobe in the eyes of some people, right? And they will scream that shit, and I feel, and homophobia is just one of them, right? Like xenophobia, homophobia, racism, all these different things, right? Like, we get labeled for speaking our mind, even if there aren't cruel intentions behind it, right? I don't believe in gay marriages. I'm not saying I don't. I'm just saying, like, somebody could say that and become a homophobe, and it's like, but this person's still super respectful. They still talk to you. They still like you. They don't hate you as a person. But now you've to discredit them, to discredit their claim, to discredit their belief, to make sure that everybody believes what you think is right. You have to scream at the top of your lungs that this person's a homophobe so that people look at them differently and we can ostracize those people for having different views than us. Because in my mind, it all comes back to, like, we all have to get along. We all have to be liked. We all have to be pandered to and catered to and all that stuff. And if you don't agree with us, then we can't all do that.
Right.
Like, it's my way or the highway now. And it's, which is crazy because, like, if it was my way or the highway, that would be wrong. But if it's their way or the highway, then it would be right. And this is where I get a little confused, because it's like, you're allowed to have thoughts and opinions, but I'm not allowed to have thoughts and opinions, or I'm a bad person. I don't really get it,
Right. And I think what it works is, and you hear this when you're younger or whatever, is the more often you hear a lie, the more you believe it becomes the truth.
Absolutely.
And no matter what program you turn on, no matter what app you have, it's obviously going to be tailored to your thoughts, or at least the thoughts you thought you had, until you get converted to whatever it is you're listening to. And your thoughts now become someone else's thoughts. And if you think back to, like, what did you hear and what created this mindset? I don't think there's an actual stepping off point or tipping point where you would say, okay, this is when I changed. It's just built over time and it slowly sinks in, and now you find yourself defending. Almost to the point of last week, the trigger discussion. We find the need to defend a position that at the end of the day doesn't mean dick, because what are we doing? We're just arguing. We're arguing because someone convinced us, some media application convinced us, whatever, on a bunch of crap. But if you look back at it and you think, well, who are these people? Why am I so enamored by their bullshit that they spew? And it's entered my mind to the point where I want to defend it and argue. Case in point, we have a really good buddy that's in the office here with us, and we're great friends and everything else. But political wise, he's not a big fan of Trump. Doesn't mind his policies. Doesn't mind what he's trying to accomplish. Just thinks Trump's a fucking moron. And a lot of people think he's a moron. He just doesn't stop talking. He's braggadocious. He's almost narcissistic in a way of all the greatness that he's done. I mean, he's his own biggest advocate, which I think he should be. But man, he's just adamant about, no way am I voting for Trump. Like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you, but we get in some hot discussions. It doesn't affect my relationship with him, and still come over and have beers and hang out, and kids play together. But it's still like we've each positioned ourselves in a way that we have our beliefs, and we argue it out. And it's like we're trying to convince each other to come to the other side, when really it doesn't matter. And John and I talked about this before the thing. The sad part is, from a political thing, we have really one choice. On November 6th, every 4 years, or whenever the voting is, depending on what's going on in your community, we make our vote. And if our candidate wins, they win. And okay, happy for us, our candidate's in there, and hopefully he's going to, or she's going to, do what they said they're going to do. And if they lose, they lose. That's it. No matter how many times we argue with each other, no matter how many times, the people want to go burn a building down or do something freaking radical, the vote's the vote. That's what I get as an American citizen. After that, it's just complaints and movements and silliness, and it's ridiculous.
That's a good point, because I like that, because I still have friends, and this is my RAS system working, right? Is I have a lot of friends that have the same views as I do, but I love having conversations with people who don't, right? Because there's this really cool thing that happens, right? When you step aside from your ego and you have open discussions, you learn new things. You figure stuff out, and you figure out whether or not the story that you already believe holds weight when it's tested. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, I love having friends that I can sit there and have back and forth with, like the example you were talking about, where we're trying to convince each other, right, that we're right. But at the same time, like, we're listening for things that might change what we think or take what we think even further.
Right.
There's times where I have had conversations where it's like, oh, wow. Oh, I never really thought about it like that. I never really looked at it like that. So hang on a second. Let me step back and ask the questions, right? Let me ask more questions to really figure out if this is a true thing or not. And I think so many of us, unfortunately, when it comes to this whole topic, is that we get way too lost in our emotions, right? And it's like, we have a belief, and we all want to have a belief, and we all want to be right, right? There's a part of us that we all want to be right. I mean, let's just be real. Like, right. I like being right,
sure,
but we want to be right so bad that we are willing to take everything that we hear and see that supports that and totally shut out everything else as complete falsehood, right? We're not willing to listen. We're not willing to hear. We're not willing to see. We don't want to see the evidence. All that evidence is fake. None of that stuff, right? And we just run with it because we're so emotionally tied to whatever it is that we believe. And we're, again, like back to what I said, we're willing to argue about it tooth and nail to make sure that other people think the way that we think.
Right.
And if you don't, you're wrong. You're just stupid. You're XYZ, whatever label I can put on you to make me feel justified in my belief that I'm right. Right.
Yeah, no, I get it. But I think where the stupidity comes, and I'm just going to keep saying it. We listen to the nonsense on TV, on social media, on wherever, and we don't go dig deeper. How many people actually go dig deeper and look to find out the truth on their own? Okay, abortion's a big topic right now. Okay, it's another political season, so of course we have to bring it up. And yep, Donald Trump, his term, we reversed Roe versus Wade, and now it's not a federal thing, it's a state thing. Okay, great. Well, everyone's so angry with it. Like, okay, go and tell me what's going on in your state. Is there something going on in your state that makes abortion legal or not legal or whatever, without getting into the whole abortion thing? Because God, that's a whole animal in and of itself. But is there something changed? But if I go online and I look up, you got Biden's campaign talking about Trump did this and Trump did that, and then you go to Trump's campaign and say, oh, well, Biden wants this and he wants to, you can kill a baby on 9 months and da 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 da. Like, oh my freaking Lord! Like, it's do the math. Like, go on the internet and figure it out. And again, your other problem with the internet too, and I found this, is for some reason when I look for something, depending on the search engine, it won't let me see it. I don't know why, but if I want to do a research on, let's say, abortion and what the rules are and da 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 da, I can't find the information. But yet I go to another web search site and there it is. Like, why is it on one but not on the other one? I mean, this is the internet. It should be open to everyone. So it's like, okay, are they controlling that narrative too? If I looked up stuff on Trump and what's going on with his campaign, or I looked it up on Biden, certain times I go there and it's all about Biden or it's all about Trump and vice versa. Like, really? Can we just have a wide open internet where I can find my own information and make my own thing? Or are you going to steer me down a path again based on what it is you believe and what I'm supposed to hear?
Well, that's a huge point, man, because if you go on and you do, and you start to research, right? Because I'm an advocate of researching, but a lot of people don't know how to research. I'm just, right.
Agreed.
And, back in the day when you had to do a research paper, you had to cite, a bunch of sources and stuff like that. And a lot of the time we go to one source, and even this, I'll take it to this degree. When you go in and you search for something, the way that you ask the question in your search engine changes everything. Because here's the thing, right? Like, and I talk about the RAS all the time. And this is going to be something that comes up a lot, right? The reticular activating system. We talked about this with the red car thing, right? If you're looking for something, you're going to find it. Mm-hmm. And so when you're making a search, a lot of the time people have biasness in the way that they write their words in the search engine because they're looking for something, right? I want to ask a question and subconsciously I ask the question so that when the search engine pops up, it's usually going to validate what I already thought.
Absolutely.
Right? Because of the way that I worded it.
Yep.
Right? It's a biased way of wording it. And then on top of that, you do have, you can't find an article anymore, and you can. There's very few and far in between sources, but they all have a hint of biasness in what they're saying. Right? And so like when you go to look at an article, they already have an idea of what the message that you're trying to get across, right? And so if you go look up this abortion, let's just use abortion. We're already on the topic, right? If you go look that up, but you're not looking up the right thing, and you go to a source, they already have their opinion that they're trying to intertwine into the message that they're trying to play with the facts, right? And it's like anything, right? And this is anything, right? I can take literally any article on the internet, any article, even things that oppose my views, and I can interpret them any way that I want to make sure that I'm validating what it is that I believe. Right. I will find one sentence that says, oh, you're right. The other 187 sentences are wrong, right? But like, that's what we hyper focus on. And that's like one of the crazy things about this whole thing is like the media, social media, Google, Yahoo, all those things, right? Like no matter what you do, if you're looking for something, you're going to find evidence to support it. And a lot of it is just speculation. Right. And that's the stupidity of it, right? Like we base our facts, our personal opinions as fact, right? Like personal opinions are facts now. Just so you know, if you weren't aware of the times, like we are living in a time where personal opinion is fact.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. And it changes every day.
And it changes all the time, right? But we base that on speculation of somebody else who's speculating on something else.
Right.
Right? They're just taking things and interpreting it. Right? That's why we have such problems with religion, right? Because you got all these different people who take one little line or one little verse or whatever it is, and they base their entire identity off of it. And they call people out because they're not following that one little thing. But I have hundreds of things to prove that this is right. Okay, well, I have hundreds of things to prove that this is wrong. Who's right? Who's wrong? What does it matter? And and so, what are what are we doing, man? Like,
Right.
are we just feeding in to our ego and our subconscious preconceived ideas of something, which is blind faith? If you want to get on the topic of blind faith, like, I think that's incredibly ridiculous. I'm all for like finding validation, but take the ego out of it.
Well, that's
right. Like, take the ego out of it for a second. Just a second. Just play a game. Let's play. I want to play a game, right? Just take the ego out for a second. It's not going to hurt you. Take it right back in 10 minutes. It's all good.
Right.
You're not going to lose anything. I promise. Your ego will be there when it's waiting for you, right? But just being able to do that and go on there and look and then come to a conclusion before you just see the clickbait or you see the article or you see the video, the 10-second clip of the hour-long video, right? Just do the research.
Right, but that's the part where the clickbait is probably best.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to do the research and the investigation, and this is the struggle why I get so upset with this, is as you were talking, I thought this should be fun. I went into Google, not blasting Google, that's just what was my search engine. I just typed in abortion rights. Thought, let's just see what comes back. Now there's the all images, videos. I just said news. Let's just go to news on the news tab under, again, my search terms, 2 words, abortion rights. For some reason, the header of the news page here on Google says, JD Vance is Trump's VP pick.
What?
Like, okay, I don't know what that has to do with abortion rights, but maybe it does. So then it says, okay, now has all the news articles. New York Times header, JD Vance on the issues from abortion to the Middle East. The Guardian, a Trump-Vance administration would be the most dangerous for whatever. The title doesn't go on. Politico, Democrats have found their first big attack line against JD Vance. MSNBC, Maddow outlines JD Vance's radical extremism on Ukraine and abortion rights. NBC News, JD Vance position on abortion. Like, I just typed in abortion rights, but yet they take me straight to a political issue. And now it's all about JD Vance. Like, I wonder if it's biased towards one side because I just typed in abortion rights. I didn't say states, federal, political, who's in favor, who's not, but it's automatically taking me down this path. I can guarantee you if I went in there and typed in anything else, I'll type in.
I guarantee you, if
I'm
you
just going to type in guns.
Thing, yeah.
So I just type in guns, news. Guns are woven into the life of shooter's hometown. Someone tried to assassinate the former president. Arm yourself accordingly. Like, holy shit. I just typed in one word, guns, and it takes me automatically to negativity. Like, man, I wanted to buy a gun. Who sells guns? Or I wanted to learn more about how guns work.
Well, you messed up when you clicked news.
Well, of course, because that's where people get their information. And it's like, you got to be freaking kidding me. How do I do my own research when everything thrown at me is biased towards Google's search engine?
It's the algorithm, man.
The algorithm says, okay, give me bullshit. So if I go under, I'm going to try this. Hold on a second. Abortion rights. Now I'm just going to go under the all. So let's see nope. Throws me right at the top. All the news about bullshit. Amnesty International, Planned Parenthood. Okay, so it goes into all of this extra stuff, which is all the one-sided of whatever. I guess my point in looking this stuff up is, how do you do the research if everything is lopsided to one side? Is there a middle ground? Is there the old school way of what used to be, and most people won't know this person. The older people, if watching, will know Walter Cronkite. The news that's fit to print, or whatever his tagline was, it was just straight middle of the road. This is what happened. A bomb went off in this area, and that's that. That's all we know. As we learn more detail, we'll tell you. Not, we think it was this person, and we heard he's affiliated with this guy.
Dude, I literally can't stand what you just said. Like, I just got triggered. No. We heard, we think, if you watch the news, and how many times have you seen something where the story literally changes from, it always starts out, and we heard that it was this, right? But later on, they come back and say, well, we found out more information and it wasn't, like, they won't say it wasn't that, but they give you the facts at that point, right? But like 5 stories into it has gone by, right? It's literally speculation until then, you know? And it's insane that, like, by the time the 5th story comes out, the people have already made their decision, right? And you see this a lot with crime, right? These crimes that happen, it's like, well, we think that the shooter was this and that, and we heard from sources that, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't actually true. It was a rumor, and it was gossip that you just ran with because, well, it was entertaining. You know, somebody said we live in the time of entertainment, not of information. Right? A lot of people think we're in the time of information, but we're in the time of entertainment.
Right.
The media gets paid to entertain you.
Right.
They get paid to get you emotionally invested into it. I'm not talking about just the news. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about Google, Yahoo, all those things. Like, they get paid for clickbait, right? Which I'm not saying is wrong completely, right? That's how we get people here, right? I'm going to label this something crazy so that when you see it, you're going to be like, watch. Oh my God, I'm going to go watch this and see what stuff they're talking about, right? Because that's how we get you in.
Right.
But at that point, you're like, how do you do the research? Okay. How I do my research, at least, is I will do exactly what you did, but I will look at opposing arguments, right? And this is one of the things that I think a lot of people don't do, right? Is where if I see something and it automatically pops up, we're looking up abortion and it automatically pops up something with Trump, right? I'm going to read it, right? And then I'm immediately going to go read what was said in there about the opposing side and see what they're saying about it.
Right.
And from there, I'm going to go to their resources, because anytime you read an article, there are other sources that they cite. There's these things called citing sources, right? Usually they come up in blue on the internet. You can click those and go to the source. Right. Right. And you see where this came from. And a lot of the time it's speculation. So he said something and we're speculating that this is what he meant. Right. You know, so a lot of the research just comes down to being able to step back for a second and actually look at your opposing views and do the research on both sides of it, and then come to a conclusion. I don't care what the conclusion is of. Maybe it confirms everything that you thought. Right. I don't really care. I'm just saying, if you're only looking at one side of it, you're going to only find one side of the information at the end of the day, period. You know? Right.
I get it. I don't know. We could go round and round on all this stuff. And, you know, and the discussion is not, it didn't want to go about politics or abortion, but that's what's hot right now. I mean, obviously, we're coming off of a weekend where President Trump there was an attempted assassination, and there's a whole story behind that. God, that's a discussion that could be nuts. But even the amazingness of the media right now spinning the bullshit, whether it was Trump that got shot at, it was Biden that got shot at, or it was some random person that got shot at. When you flip between the channels, they're spinning the story to their own, like you said, clickbait. I mean, you go watch and they'll say, oh, okay, if you watch a liberal side, they talk about, oh, we're sorry to see this and this should never happen in any kind of politics and we shouldn't be to this extreme and blah, 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 blah. And I think, but you keep feeding that engine with the same horse shit that, and it's like, okay, we're sorry that this happened. This should never happen. But JD Vance is a douchebag because he's this, that, and the other thing, and he's on Donald Trump's ticket, and he's going to be the next Hitler, and he's going to do like, okay. And then you got the Trump campaign that say, oh, you could come at me and you could do whatever, but I'm going to come back fighting mad, and I'm going to kick everyone out, and I'm going to do all this stuff. And it's like, okay, that's lighting the fire on the other side. Like, holy shit. How about just have a discussion about the topics, about some of the things that's distressing America, and we work on that and leave the banter of why the other guy's an asshole. They're both assholes, as far as I'm concerned. Again, it still comes back to argue with your neighbor all day long. But I have one vote in this specific situation. I vote for Trump and I get X. I vote for Biden and I get Y. On November 7th, topic's over. Like, argue all you want. There's a 4-year deal. That's the greatest thing about our country, the Constitution, is we get a vote. For all you morons that keep voting for the same douchebags that are sitting in office and yet nothing changes, but for the 6 weeks up to the campaign, they've convinced you that they're awesome. Remember, they've been there for 25 years and nothing's changed. And if you believe the bullshit that spews out of their mouth that they're going to make a difference and they're going to make policy changes, bullcrap. Nothing's changed. It's one big engine. Whether you're right or you're left, liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. The engine is the engine. It's going to move in whatever direction it wants. Your vote, although you voted, it may count to a level, but if you keep voting the same douchebags in office, why do you think anything's going to change? Live with it, own it, wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I face the day, your day, not your vote's day, not all the people around you's day. It is what it is. If you don't wake up and act on you and do what you need to do, what's best for you and your family, I don't know why fighting with your neighbor on who's a better politician or why abortion rights are this or why you should call me a she and a them and a her and an it. Like, don't care. Like, get your shit done. Be the responsible person that you're supposed to be and the role model, not this advocate of stupidity that you want to argue in social media and be a keyboard warrior because you know how to type sentences really fast to call someone out. It blows my mind how we've become such power players behind a screen and argue about why your position is correct. But I'll put you in a room right against the person you're calling out. Somehow I don't think you're going to have the balls to say whatever it is that you can say with your fingertips. Drives me freaking bonkers.
Hey, you know what? That's the part that at the end of the day, I like to focus on, right? What is the solution, but what is the way of getting around this and getting past it and moving forward into a life of growth and development? You know, like, how do I change my life with this? And you said, like, you voting time comes around, you vote, right? What happens though is we create these stories, we create these narratives. We're so emotionally invested that in this case, for an entire 4 years, we're either rah, 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 or we're just moaning and complaining about something, right? Mm-hmm. Or on the other side, complaining about the other side. And we're feeding the story. For 4 years, we're building up these stories, you know, and this is just in politics, not to mention your entire life. I don't want to stay just on politics, but your entire life, you're building up these stories based on speculation and public opinion and somebody else's views who's, you know, maybe not even an expert. You're taking all this advice, you're taking all this stuff in, and you're creating these narratives in your own life. And it's like, okay, when do we just stop for a second, stop with the complaining, stop with the whining, stop feeding into all this stuff emotionally, stop getting worked up and stressed out and pissed off all the time, right? Because you see it, we're literally like destroying ourselves, getting so worked up about these things. Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? You're worked up about this. What are you doing about it? Okay, and you said the keyboard warriors, like, what are you actually doing? Okay, I understand having a platform and speaking on it, right? And trying to change the narrative, whatever it ends up being, pushing your point. But like, what are you doing?
Right.
Okay. Am I just complaining about stuff? Am I just labeling things because it's easy? Am I just putting a name on something because it's easy? Am I just feeding into the bullshit because it's easy? Because that's what people without a plan in life do.
Right.
They do what's easy. People without a plan, people without a purpose, people without a destination, they do what's easy. And a lot of the time it's stupid. What do they do? The easy stuff is stupid. Mm-hmm. Right? It's literally like mind-numbing stuff, right? And it's feeding into the narrative. It's feeding into the emotion, right? When do we stop? When do we take a second, sit back and say, you know what? I don't like things the way they are. I do believe in this. I'm going to follow this narrative, but I'm going to do so with an actual plan. I'm going to do so with an actual purpose. Instead of just, coming to this screaming fest of who's louder and who can complain more, right? Like, what am I actually doing? What we were talking about politics. It's like, okay, if my candidate doesn't win, what am I going to do for the next 4 years? Am I just going to sit around and blame the fact that my candidate didn't win for not being where I want to be in life?
Right.
And then just going home after a miserable day at work and sitting in front of the news channel for 3 hours and then being miserable and complaining about it? Or I'm going to take what I have and make the best of it, period. At the end of the day, do I have a plan? Do I have a purpose? Am I asking the right questions? And am I living?
I think that's the key point. Are you living? I had a discussion with my wife the other day about this show and, what is it? And she watched it, it's all new to us. And we're having these discussions. I said, what can we do different? What would make this show better? Or what did you see when you listened, watched, whatever? And she came back with one thing that was just amazing. And it didn't even click. Like, people have no clue who we are. We're just two dudes right now sitting in front of a screen that, giving our opinions, trying to do a little spin on it from a life roast standpoint. But what have we done? How are we living? And I looked at that and thought, she's absolutely right. I have my opinions and I have my thing. My opinions are based on what I believe are the facts that I've learned over life. And I just to give you guys the background, I didn't grow up with any means. My parents worked their ass off and they provided what they could provide, but it wasn't this lap of luxury, and in some instances we would be considered poor. And because it wasn't 5 kids growing up in New York, you do that and you grow out of it. And at no point was I taught, rely on someone else. Someone else will provide, you should get caught up in this. It was more of a lesson of, listen, if you want something, go get it. And if something gets in your way, well, you have a couple options. You can go through it, you can go over it, you can go around it, or you could sit there and wonder, how do I do this, and go nowhere. I never took that option. I always took okay, well, I like what's on the other side better. So it may take me some time, but I'll get over it. And over time, I've built it and built it and built it, whether that's a financial build, a mental build, a physical build. It's something that I've looked at and said, what's stopping me? Well, from a media standpoint, everything's stopping me. The world is against me. My candidate is against me, or the opposing candidate is against me. There's new rules that just came out that's against me. There's new tax codes that's against me. There is everything against me. And yet, if I really looked at it, none of it really affects me. Yes, prices of this more expensive. And yes, there's gas and there's whatever. And it's all because of some political bullshit that possibly is going on. I have no idea. But if the cost of bread goes up, well, then I have to work harder. And people will say, oh, that's not so easy. You can just I could just what? I can go work an extra job to provide for my children. Should I have to? I don't know. Some would say you shouldn't have to. Bullshit. Like, why shouldn't I have to? If the economy goes up, it sucks. I'm complaining and I'll vote for my guy. And if my guy doesn't get in, well, then I have to keep working. But I'm still going to push through it. I'm still going to push through all the pains of life and figure out how to go forward and not sit there and say, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. It's ruined my life. I'm never going to do anything again. Like, what? How is that even an excuse or a reason to stop? Like, I don't have that choice. You've been through your own trials. I've been through extensive trials, the death of loved ones and raising kids on my own and doing things that most would think, holy shit. But life brought me to it and I got through it and I moved on. We put so much emphasis on this horseshit that's all over the TV and media. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't affect our life. It just sucks us in and occupies our mind long enough that we don't focus on the stuff we should be focused on. And we get caught up in this bullshit. Now we'll even go above and beyond and waste more time typing out what our thoughts are to convince other idiots that we're right.
Dude, focus, right? What we focus on. And you said, like, if I chose to focus, and my trials have been extensive in the fact that, like, if I would have fed into the stuff that people told me was true when I was going through this stuff, I'd never have gotten past it, right? Like, if I would have fed into it and just believed just blindly that they were true, that the things that they were saying, like the world was out to get me, that I'd never make it anywhere, that I'd never be successful because of my past and all this stuff, I'd probably have gone back to it because I didn't have anything to focus on except for what I was focusing on, which is all negative. This is the RAS at the finest, right? When you focus on negative stuff, you are going to continue finding negative stuff, right? If I sit around and I'm looking at the media and it's all negative, first of all, that's the algorithm. If you're searching for negative things, you're going to find it.
Yep.
Period. Right? You talked about that. And now, I look at my feed and I look at all the stuff that I watch. It's like the second something's negative or something that's like not conducive to my personal growth and development, I change it.
Right.
You know? And it's about finding the solutions. It's about finding the way around. It's about finding the way over. It's about finding the way through. And anything that's trying to keep me stuck, I can see that now. Before I couldn't, right? Like before it was like, I would listen to the people telling me about how the world's trying to hold me back. And I let it try to hold me back, you know? And then as soon as I started becoming more aware and realizing how full of shit it was, and it was just a story. It was just a story. That's all it was. It was just a story because 5 out of 10 of them experienced the same thing. So now it's true.
Right.
You know? And not to mention that none of the people that I heard from about this stuff were taking personal accountability. None of them. It was always somebody else's fault. And never did they try to escape that. Right. And it's like, so when I'm caught up into this narrative, I can blame the narrative. If I'm not successful, like my candidate loses, if I'm not successful now, I have something to blame. It's easy. Right. I can always find something to blame. Right. But if I just sit around and complain all the time and whine and blame the world and the universe and all that stuff, that's what I'm going to find. Mm-hmm. I'm going to find it. I'm going to find all the reasons in the world not to get my ass up off the couch and do what I need to do. I shouldn't have to, right? I shouldn't have to have 2 jobs. I shouldn't have to work my ass off all the time just to provide, right? I don't believe I should. But guess what?
What's your choice?
I am going to.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my God, I hate working somewhere. Like, I'm grateful to be able to be in a position to where I can do these things, right? And that's we're not grateful anymore.
No.
Where's
my next meal?
Where's my next meal? We're entitled, pissed off, angry storytellers.
Yeah. Listen, I'm a conservative to the bone without going politics. I am a true believer in if you want something, go after it. I don't need the help of others. If I hit rock bottom and someone wants to offer a hand to stand back up, I think that's great. And I think that should be. But when my eyes open every single morning, it's up to me on what happens in my life and how I proceed. Some may say, oh, tease this and tease that. And, you know, he doesn't give a shit and he pushes forward and he ignores it. You know what? You're right. I do. I really do. And sometimes I wish I could give that I don't give a fuck mentality that I have to other people because they care too much on other thoughts and people's views and they get sucked into it all for what? Because someone told them they needed to, that they need to be aware of that. There was this saying that came out years ago and it was bracelets, the WWJD, what would Jesus do? And it was an awesome thing, not from a religious standpoint, but it was, okay, if whether you believe in Jesus and your religion, take that away from it. This is supposed to be a man that gave his life on the cross for all of us. He was that unselfish that he said, you know what, I got you. I'm okay with dying for you. And he did it. And he said, and I'm going to do this so that, you know, you are protected in the eyes of God. And again, use God in whatever context you want. I don't care. But if you sat there every day and you said, okay, what would this perfect person do? Take Jesus out. What would this perfect person do in this situation? And then step back and truly look at it and say, okay, would they be a raging asshole? Would they shit on someone? Would they, you know, take the money and run? What would they do? And if you sat and thought about, well, I know exactly what they would do. And everyone knows right from wrong. I don't give a shit what politics says it, which religious dogma you sucked into, which anything. If you just ask yourself, what would the ideal person do? You have your answer every freaking time. They would work harder. They would go out of their way. They would extend a hand. It's all positivity. But yet, we don't have that quick question. What would the perfect person do? We just automatically go into our own mental stress of, well, that's bullshit. This is what I'm going to do because that person did this and I'm triggered by that and they didn't call me the right word and this candidate sucks. And it's like, wow. How about you just do what was best in that situation and continually do that? And if everyone did that, all of a sudden we have a society where we're looking out for each other rather than trying to step on each other to get to the next level.
Dude, you know what's great is, you know, I asked this question about stuff like this and it's like, do you think the people who are opposing you don't want what's best for them and everybody around them?
I'm sure they do.
Right. And this is where people get lost. They think because somebody disagrees with the vehicle in which we're trying to implement change is different. that they want to see us fail and they want to see the world fail. I think when we get to step out and say, you know what, I don't agree with you, but I know your intention is still to better us, right? Like you still want what's best. You just think it needs to be done in a different way. The underlying thing doesn't change, right? The media wants you to believe that because somebody disagrees with you, and I'm not talking about the news, I'm talking about everything
Right.
that you take in. Everybody wants you to think that because you think different, we are different. We all want to see, I'm going to jump back into politics. We all want to see the country rise.
Sure.
I don't believe that any of us, except for like actual like terrorists and domestic terrorists and all these people that want to see us like fail. Like I think Democrats and Republicans alike want to see us rise. They want to see us claim our rightful place, right? They want to see us strong. We just want to go about it different ways.
Right.
And that is the division that the media feeds on. And so when we can step back from that, I think there's a lot of power to be had there that could potentially bring us together and get us away from all this nonsense. Like you said earlier, like it's all bullshit. It's all nonsense. Like none of it really matters. But because we're so emotionally invested in it, like it's everything. It's our entire identity.
It gives us something to do. Hell,
Focus.
I love TikTok. I love YouTube Shorts. I love Instagram, all that social media stuff, because the algorithm has learned I love stupid shit. I love watching people trip. I love watching the scare pranks. I love all because it makes me laugh. I think laughing is the greatest things in the world. So the algorithms learn that, but it's also learned my conservative ways, and it loads up different things that feeds me, stuff about whatever big business and how it's benefiting, and it's all the different stuff. But I think I have that switch in my mind that knows sometimes when I'm watching, I'm thinking, okay, you guys, you brought me something that I know why you brought it. You brought it because I like watching videos like this, but it's bullshit. You fed me some propaganda, clickbait crap that it sucked me in for a second. And then as I'm reading on or listening, I'm thinking, okay, this is not my world. And I can turn it off immediately and you said this, because my focus is not what they're trying to tell me. I have a bigger, better focus, and it's generated on my playbook, on what I'm trying to achieve as a person with my family and with my significant others. And I can check out. I don't think people have that gift of being able to check out. They get sucked into this horse shit and then they defend it. And I'll defend my opinions at times, but I also, and I've said this in a couple of previous ones, a lot of times I'll defend it just to be devil's advocate and piss people off, because I just think it's hilarious how I can get someone to a level and go, yeah, I was just playing. I don't really care. But we do get that emotional. So it's turning off this nonsense. And do you have the ability to do it? If you don't, then you need to stop watching it. Because if you get sucked in, you're not only sucked in, you're over the edge. And I see some of these whack jobs that are over the edge screaming and carrying on. And oh my freaking Lord, like how did you get to a level of pure insanity on what your belief is that you will scream and holler and in some cases shoot another person because you believe that strongly about it?
Well, but that's the thing. A lot of people, goes back to the tools and information. A lot of people just don't realize that there is always a better way of going about something. Mm-hmm. Again, it's the path of least resistance, right? We're in that age and time where what's easy is right. And what's easy is to get violent, is to scream, is to be the louder person, right? Because the people who aren't being noticed. They're not the ones on the TV. They're not the ones on TikTok. They're not the ones, running things. Like it's just, that's what we have, and a lot of people are just so caught up in it. It's hard to see outside of it. And I'll give them that, right? Like I understand that, like people that are brainwashed, and I don't use brainwashed in a way that's like innately negative. I'm just saying, like, we're all brainwashed. It's just how we're brainwashed, right? Like we're all conditioned, but like some of us are so strongly conditioned that we really refuse to see subconsciously anything else. Like that's just all they know, because it's easy. It gets the quick response. It gets the quick thing that they're looking for.
Right.
And it sucks that's, where it comes to. And I don't know, it's just, it takes some time. It takes some work. Right. But like, I'll ask this, is like, how's it working out for you? Mm-hmm. Right. I'll always go back to that question. Like, is Is being the loudest person, making a scene all the time and screaming at the top of your lungs just to get your point across working for you? Is being angry all the time working for you? Is being upset and blaming everything around you and being miserable and stuck being poor, broken, and helpless working for you? Right? Is not having a plan in life, not having a purpose, not feeling fulfilled working for you? Because if it is, by all means, keep doing it. Right? I don't care.
Right. No. And that's what it is. I you know what? The greatest part of being blessed to be born in America is that we were born under the rules that we are free, supposedly. And we have the rights that most wish for. We get to vote, and our vote stands to put people in place that are going to act upon what we believe matches our internal wishes. For the most part, it's worked fantastic. We still live in a free society. We still get to do things. It's not really free. There's a bazillion rules that we follow. But
semantics.
The idea here is if we don't like what's going on, then build a campaign, build a following, build something that allows you to get a voice to go in and make change. If our voice is to argue and fight and go to the extremes before we actually try to make a change, a real change, well, then our society's failed. We are going down a bad path here. And I think what's happening is that our leadership, although we're supposed to be elected officials, are there to represent us. They've now grown to represent themselves. And some, you can call it whatever, the deep state, but that, to me, that's both sides. It's this conglomerate of influencers that control the outcome of many things that may or may not agree with what we're saying. That gets us to a point of hysterics, of the extremisms, because they're pushing this narrative that we either agree or disagree with. And we still have a choice. That choice is on voting day, make your vote. If you lose, you lose. I don't understand. If the World Series in baseball ended and you lost, fight all day long. But guess what? The season's over.
The ump made a bad call.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
He should have ran faster.
We've moved forward. If the religion, you're not going to heaven if you think this way. Like, okay, thank you for your position on that, and thank you for trying to scare the shit out of me. I still think I'm a pretty good human being, so I'm going to make my choice. And again, choice. It'll probably be my word of the year. Choice. We have choices, and we have consequences based on those choices. Vote for who you want, believe who you want, do what you want. But there are consequences. Some are good, some are bad, and some are just a life learning lesson that'll bring us to the next obstacle. But man, to get yourself worked up and go to the extreme, to get angry with your neighbor because of their personal opinions and choices, or for that matter, vote on political levels, it's your choice. We live in a society that allows us to have choices. If you don't like them, don't hang out with them. But to smash them, to do something violent against them, to get into angry arguments with them, like, why? For what reason? Are you trying to convince them? It's not what we're here to do. Live your life, live to your playbook, follow your path. And if someone gets in your way, go around them, go over them, go through them, go under them. But don't fucking blast them. That's not what this is about. Nope. Find the way, what would Jesus do? What would the perfect person do? He'd be the credible man or woman and say, okay, I got this. I'm going to go around you. I'm going to do everything I can possible to not steamroll you and leave you standing. But at this point, I need to get to the next level. And that's that. To fight with them, to kill them, to knock them down, to do whatever, all for your personal success. That's not right. Just do what you're supposed to do. Take care of your family. Fuck all this nonsense that's going on TV and all the bullshit that they try and suck you in just so that you get their vote. Like, it's crap.
Yeah. That's at the end of the day, that's it. live your life, you know, and don't, if you, and I'm not saying don't, right? I'm saying if you want change, if you don't want to live like this anymore, stop basing decisions like this off speculation, off some narrative, right? Like dig deeper, ask better questions, like really reflect on stuff, like step back a second from the ego and take a look. Like, I don't care if you argue with your neighbor. Like, I'm saying don't because I want to start to get along and stuff. But like, if you're going to argue with somebody, don't do it because of some bullshit that you heard that your friend posted on social media and you automatically believe it because they're an expert in zoology and they're talking about science, political science, Jesus Christ. And you know what I mean? Like, so the decisions, if you really want to change your life, you got to ask better questions. You got to make sure that you're going into something with the information that you need to have, not the information that you want to have, you know? And just live your life. Own it. Whatever side it ends up that you land on, own it, but stop fighting tooth and nail about dumb shit. We're never going to come together at that point if we just keep doing that.
No,
never.
No. So, all right, let's end on that. Again, big thing here is probably the easiest answer. Turn your shit off. Like you've made,
except for this,
you've made your decision. You've figured it out. Like building your story for the next 4 months until voting day, or if that's the level, or if you don't want a religion, then don't go to church or don't go to your thing or whatever. Make your choice. Live with it. If you believe in something, that's great. Believe in it. But stop getting on your big propaganda, preachers podium and trying to profess everything all because, we are a free society and you can say whatever the fuck you want. And, the message here is live within who you are, follow what you want. Don't step on your neighbor to get there. And by all means, help another brother up. And don't be a douchebag. That might be the thing. Don't be a douchebag.
Don't be a dick. I got a poster of Buddha that it literally just says, "Don't be a dick,"
and that's what it is. I mean, it's wow. Go out of your way to be humble, be nice, be whatever. But to squash a person because you don't believe in what they believe in,
ridiculous,
pure ridiculous. And let's just end on that. Don't be ridiculous.
Don't be ridiculous.
There it is. So
end of story. What'd you say?
I said have a super great day. Remember to press
subscribe.
There you go. All that crap.
Like and hit that little bell thing on there so you get notifications every time we release something new. And with that, I bid you adieu.
Peace out.